As we, this Sunday, start, I guess this would be the functional church year, again this fall, it's interesting that our two readings today are concerned with how we, as a church community, function in a healthy manner. In the Romans epistle, the Apostle Paul kind of restates some of those famous 10 commandments that God gave to Moses back in the book of Exodus, and we are just starting to look at Exodus through the next while. And he did this before he concluded by wrapping up that all the commandments are wrapped up in Jesus' commandment to love your neighbor as yourselves. So that's our Romans reading. And then the gospel reading from Matthew, it gives us a model for dealing with conflict within a community. That dealing with conflict starts with clear lines of accountability to one another. And here we are, we're gathered together in this time of worship, and we are excited to begin this new year of programs and activities. And it's hard to be excited sometimes, because we've had a lot of losses in the last while. And we're working our way through that. But as we deal with that, we know that life goes on, and we know that there are things that need to be done. So we keep going, and we start our programs, and we try to be excited about them because we know how important it is to live together in a healthy community. That it's really important to live together in a healthy unity. That we owe that to ourselves. That we owe that to each other. And really, we owe that to our kids that are outside. We owe to them to model a healthy community. Because they're the next generation of leadership in our church. And we have a responsibility to them of love and accountability. Please pray with me. Gracious God, as we meditate upon these scriptures today, grant to us understanding that our actions towards one another reveal your love towards the wider world. Amen. So, one of the lessons that we take from today's reading is something that we really already know, but it doesn't hurt to just say aloud every once in a while, and that is that our relationships matter. That our relationships with one another, they matter. And healthy relationships are at the core of a healthy church community. You remember way back when we started to talk about the book of Romans, the letter of Romans, back in the spring. When we started looking at the letter to the church, we talked about the fact that this community had gone through a really significant change in demographics. That the church began as primarily Jewish, but then during the reign of Claudius, the Jewish folks, they were expelled from the city for a number of years, and by the time they were allowed to return, which was 5 years plus later, the church had continued to grow and grew to a fairly large Gentile population within the church. So when these folks returned, it looked much different than it did when they left. And that this new kind of throwing together a Jewish community and a Gentile community into a church community, there was a number of tensions that arose. So Paul writes this letter to that particular church to urge for unity. And we have gone over that throughout the summer. But the memory verse that the kids at VBS actually used this year, and I wanted to bring this into our readings, came from the book of Romans. Romans 14:19 says, "Let us strive for the things that bring peace and the things that build each other up." Now in our Bible it says then the things for mutual edification, but mutual edification, that's just a fancy way of saying building each other up, because there are so many forces outside this building that will just try to tear us down, that we don't need that here. Here is a place where we love one another, and we strive, my friends, we strive to build one another up, that mutual edification. If the church back in the original early church was going to survive, and not just survive but thrive, then everyone needed to find a way to live together in harmony, to find those ways to build one another up. And that's still true for us today. If we are going to not just survive, but we are going to thrive as a community of faith, we need to find those ways that we build each other up. Because nothing destroys the fabric of a church like fighting. And I'm not even talking big fights, it's the little ones. And nothing destroys the reputation of a church within the wider community like infighting. So transparency and accountability are key for church leadership as dealing with conflicts when they first occur rather than waiting. Now, when I was a young woman and I was going through a separation and divorce, there were certain rumors that started going around about me. Some were exaggerations of a truth, but most were untrue. And I had just moved to a new province, so I didn't run into people I knew very often, but I started to hear some snippets of these rumors from back home. And my first thought was, no one who knows me would ever believe such things. So I said nothing. But of course, some folks did believe those rumors. Not everyone, but some. Because human nature, I guess, people love to believe the worst. And in the end, it damaged my relationship with some of those friends and family members, some of those folks. And even all these years later, why I was thinking about it, because over the summer we went to a family reunion, and I ran in to some of these folks, and there was this strain between us, even after all these years. Things are best dealt with when they happen, because unresolved issues, they have a long shelf life. So Matthew's gospel teaches us that when an issue arises, we deal with it immediately. And if that one-on-one doesn't work, then we bring 2 or 3 others to help us mediate. And if the issue is still not resolved, then we bring it before the whole community. And it's only after you have worked through all those steps that you are allowed to dismiss a relationship with the other party, because relationships matter. Now, that I've said all that, in case some of you are getting nervous, that maybe there's some conflict brewing that you don't know about, rest assured there's not. Or if there is, I don't know about it either. But the thing is, when the community is healthy, that's the time when we need to talk about these things. That's the best time to talk about staying healthy, is when we're healthy. And I think it's important because we're starting our new year, and we're in a good space as we start our new year. And today we welcome back our youngest members to Sunday school programming. And it's really, really important, folks, that we offer to them, that we model for them the healthiest faith community we can, even when we're going through this time of sorrow and grief. Those precious little souls, they will look to us as examples of how Christians interact with one another. And we owe to them that love, that practical love. Because what is a faith community? Like, when are we in community? And when are we not? The Gospel of Matthew says that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I'm with you. When 2 or 3 or more are gathered on a Sunday morning, we are a community. Where 2 or 3 are gathered or more on Wednesday at Nimble Thimbles, we're a community. Where 2 or 3 or more are gathered down at the Embrace Center on Thursday for a creative spirit, we are a community. Where 2 or 3 or more are gathered at youth group, they are a community. When 2 or 3 of us are gathered in our homes, at the grocery store, at a restaurant, etc., 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 we are a Christian community. Basically, we always, my friend, have the responsibility to act out of Christian love. It's not always easy, but it's for us to do. We owe to one another love just as Jesus Christ first loved us. Thanks be to God. Amen.